each organ, all the way down to each cellular system that composes each organ or tissue system, can be thought of as something emitting out a frequency. That's measurable, and there's healthy frequencies and non-healthy frequencies. And so this machine basically, they've just built a big database of what healthy and non-healthy is. And so it scans you, it'll scan you in about 5 minutes. You wear headphones and hold a little wand in your hand. And I get back all kinds of information. But the coolest thing that I get back is it turns out that pathogens have a much higher frequency than our normal tissue systems for the most part, and they're really easy to identify in frequencies. So this thing can informationally detect, staph in your heart wall, or, trichinella in your gut, or, whatever.
Welcome back to Ultra Life Today. We were talking with Chip Paul in our last episode, and he teed up some really interesting things related to the omega-3, omega-6 balance in our body and the endocannabinoid system. And now we're moving on to something real fascinating. It's something I'd not even heard of when I got on Chip's website, neighborlywellness.com, Bioresonance frequency scan. And this is not a diagnostic tool because you can't say that, but what it is, it's a way that Chip can get feedback from the body and learn some profound things that can help you on your journey to health move forward fast.
Yeah, it's information that we can gain to help us understand where we might want to focus more of our attention.
Yeah, let's get into it. I was really fascinated with this concept of what you do, a bioresonance scan. Can you tell us a little about that? Because it was my first foray into hearing about this. And what's
Yeah.
really cool is it really seems to be, according to Chip, so we're going to let him prove himself here, a way that one may potentially not have to spend so much on this diagnostic testing. So give us a background in that.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, so the big thing is this is not a diagnostic. So let me be extraordinarily clear
Yeah,
about this.
thank you.
Even if I was a physician, I could not
Right.
use this instrument to diagnose any disease state, really view you medically. However, it's a great informational system that really helps, let's say, get to the bottom of what might be going on with someone. So what the system does is, I guess the best way to explain this is cellularly. So we're just a big bag of cells, right? A big collection of cells. And if for example, let's take a heart cell. So a heart cell is making ATP at a frequency, right? He's banging out ATP. Now, interestingly, that's a couple of orders of magnitude below the frequency of the sun, which I find interesting as heck. So that frequency is pretty dang
Really
high.
interesting.
There's a lot of power that he's meting out. But, if he's a good guy, he's going to want to raise his hand and say, hey, I want to participate with other heart cells and build a heart collective. Right. And he does that, by the way, with the endocannabinoid system. He raises a CB1 neuroreceptor and says, I want to play. I want to be a part of the system. And if he's threatened, he'll pull it in, or he'll start expressing a bunch of them, which says he's losing connection with the bigger system. But
Nice.
anyway, he's meting out a frequency. The collective is meting out a frequency. You, on a whole, are meting out a frequency. But each organ, all the way down to each cellular system that composes each organ or tissue system, can be thought of as something meting out a frequency. That's measurable, and there's healthy frequencies and non-healthy frequencies. And so this machine basically, they've just built a big database of what healthy and non-healthy is. And so it scans you, it'll scan you in about 5 minutes. You wear headphones and hold a little wand in your hand. And I get back all kinds of information. But the coolest thing that I get back is it turns out that pathogens have a much higher frequency than our normal tissue systems for the most part, and they're really easy to identify in frequencies. So this thing can informationally detect, staph in your heart wall, or, trichinella in your gut, or, whatever. But I see
Wow.
really three major categories of infection in people, and I mean everybody's infected. I don't care how healthy you. I've scanned one person that hasn't had an infection at the time of scanning, and I've scanned thousands of people now. Um, and that person's running for governor. I won't say who it is, but I'll tell you that
So
person.
they're a robot then, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
or they're super duper healthy, and
Or an alien. Yep,
yeah,
there you
or
go.
an alien. But anyway, what this
Makes
does is it
sense.
really helps me identify what type of infection someone potentially might have informationally. And what we see in most people, we see H. pylori very frequently. And the way
Mm,
that that manifests is burning. So if someone has, hey, I lay down at night and I burp up stomach acid. If I eat certain foods, I burp up stomach acid. They'll call it GERD. They'll call it acid reflux. They'll
right.
call it ulcers. All the same stuff. Basically, H. pylori. He is a dangerous and wicked bacteria that will cause pancreatic cancer, stomach cancer, all manner of cancers. And if you're to the point where you have the burning, you are that close to being cancerous. So, and we've now built formulations, and this is part of what we're doing too, is I'm trying to validate my formulations for drug development.
Mhm.
And because we have some diagnostic equipment, again, that's somewhat qualifies, let's say, for phase point 0.5 clinical trials, kind of phase 1y stuff. And that's what we're trying to get data on now. But what we have at H. pylori, again, is a very powerful thing that appears to be working like a drug. And we've got a way to take away the burning, and then we've got a way to help your immune system eradicate the bug itself. We also see parasites, and parasites are probably the most prevalent thing that we see in people. 98% probably the people that we see have some form of parasite. And those are worms, helminths, hook, round, pin, tape type worms. And those can kill you over time. They're just slow movers and slow actors. They like you as a host, and they like to live on you for a long time. You don't really die of a heart attack or kidney failure. That might be what goes on your death certificate. That might be what the box the doctor checks, but it doesn't work that way. God is a perfect engineer. He doesn't decide one day, Adam, I think I'll stop your heart. Doesn't work that way. It takes years and years and years of stress and abuse for an organ to fail. What can cause those years and years and years of stress and abuse? Helminths, parasites, absolutely. And then the third category of thing that we see is SIBO, is small intestinal bowel overgrowth.
Yeah.
And these are people who have the severe bloating when they eat certain types of foods. These are the real severe people have food fear. They're literally, every bite of food
Yeah.
that they take is anxiety ridden. And again, we can get rid of that in a week. So we've very effectively targeted our formulations at the things that we're seeing, on our bioresonance device. So we really have the ability to help people a lot quicker. And most of these people who have pylori or SIBO or helminths, it's something that the professional medical system doesn't even recognize. You don't even get
Right.
tested for this stuff. And that's why so many of these people fall through the cracks of professional medical. And it's just, professional medical assumes, gee, I'm sorry, you're broken, you're flawed, might be genetics, might be other things, but you're just going to break. And thank God we'll be here to fix you, right? Holistic people kind of have a different attitude. God built you perfect. God is a perfect engineer. We have a natural system to help us understand our perfection and kind of use it to become more perfect. So those two worlds collide a lot. But
Yeah.
they're moving our way, which is good.
You you threw out the gauntlet, and I gotta rewind the tape really fast. You threw down the gauntlet. SIBO in a
SIBO.
week? Hold on, hold on. Tell me how someone can address SIBO in a week, because and again, I just know a little bit in this world of natural health, and I do know how to eat clean, but I know people that have struggled with SIBO that have cleaned up their diets. They've tried all kinds of stuff, Chip. They've done H2O2 therapy, hydrogen peroxide, and all kinds of different things to try to mitigate that. How in the world do you attack that and say something as bold as, in a week, we can really make a big dent in that? I got to hear this.
Yeah, you just have to understand what's going on. So with a deeper understanding of what's going on, you can always, attack the problem or view the problem in a different way. So most SIBO is really caused by something called Lactobacillus acidophilus, which is a common probiotic. Okay. So if you go to the store and you
Yep.
buy probiotics, so you're going to likely buy something with Lactobacillus acidophilus in it. Now, Lactobacillus acidophilus, if he stays in your biome, he's a helpful guy. He's a great guy. But if he populates your upper GI, he is incredibly harmful. And not that this is just observational, but we see, let's say, SIBO indicated in obesity quite frequently. We see SIBO indicated in type 2 diabetes quite frequently. So is he the cause of those things? They're certainly correlated. I'll put it that way. But anyway, Lactobacillus acidophilus is the bad guy, and we see this sometimes so overgrown. We'll see it indicated in people's rectums and their gallbladder, but way out of bounds from, let's say, the intestine. So how does this happen? How could this possibly happen? Well, just think about the inputs, okay? So if you're taking a probiotic, you're throwing gasoline on a SIBO fire, and everybody's telling you, take probiotics, it'll get better.
Yes, they are. Wow.
No, it will get worse, as if that probiotic has lacto in it. If you eat milk or dairy, you're consuming a ton of Lactobacillus acidophilus because it's part of dairy. It's just part of the guys that are in dairy. If you eat carbohydrates, and everybody says, oh, eat that broccoli, eat that cauliflower. If you're eating a lot of fiber in a fermenter, you are throwing gasoline on the fire. So these things
Interesting.
that we are told as far as our gut health, so fiber in a fermenter will really help. Not in this situation, it'll really hurt. Probiotics will really
Wow.
help. Not in this situation, they really hurt. Fermenters, not in this situation, they really hurt. So you really have to go, it's a stomach acid thing more than it is anything else. And you have to do things that increase your stomach acid. You have to, kind of keto it. So proteins and fats are great if you have SIBO, but carbs, not so much. You have to be really
Right.
careful with the carbs that you eat.
Man, thanks for going into that because when I was talking to you out at your wellness clinic, it was when you mentioned the whole connection with acidophilus. I thought, man, we get on these health trains, and everybody's promoting this and that out there. And what's the latest and greatest thing that you grab off the health food store shelf, right, Adam?
Sure, sure.
And yet they really don't know many times, like you said, they're throwing gasoline on the actual fire. That's what a great analogy.
I mean, it's pervasive and kind of accepted to supplement with these different probiotics.
It
And is
is.
it just acidophilus? I mean, there's also Boulardii and other
Coli, E.
strain.
coli, yeah, but it's mainly
Well,
lacto that we see, so overgrown, yeah. Others can
interesting.
cause it, yeah, there's Klebsiella can cause it, so there's other, overgrowths. The other thing that I see overgrown a lot is a Dementia fragilis, and he's a guy that if he overgrows and kinda gets in your rectum, he'll cause, rectal cancer and things like that. So these bugs are, they're causal, to a lot of symptoms, that we think are, incurable,
And
now.
your scanner actually identifies the pathogen and
I
its location?
Informationally, it is not a diagnostic, but
Okay.
let me tell you what this allows me to do, and it's interesting. I had direct primary care doctor in here yesterday, so I put him through a scan. He's like, holy cow. He's like, "This is the coolest thing I've ever seen." So it has a place, I think, but again, the FDA is not gonna like it if you start using them, or the FTC or the FEC or all those guys,
Right.
but they are super informational, and they really help get to the bottom of a lot of stuff. So, it gives you a holistic view of how someone is functioning. It gives you some crisis points. So, like, there's some things that I am now able to measure, that will give me severity. Gastritis would be an obvious one. So, there's, let's say, a stair step of gastritis all the way up to ulceration and cancerous type gastritis. It gives us a lot of good indications of severity and kind of what risks somebody might be at. And so we try to communicate that again. And when we communicate, we're very careful to not cross that medical boundary. We're not medical and we never claim to be. So we're
Sure.
informational and we're godly. So,
So do a lot of people think, especially here in the United States, that they just couldn't possibly have parasites?
yes.
And then you have a lot of people that eat a really clean diet, and they think, well, I couldn't possibly have parasites. Can you can you bust that myth a little bit for us too, and then how one might approach parasites on a semi-annual basis, every 3 months? How does one do that? How
Yes.
does one keep themselves clean? Because I understand it's kind of an ongoing thing,
It
especially if you
absolutely
have pets.
It absolutely is, and I would say it's not figured out yet. So it's a
Okay.
emerging field of science, but there's 4 things that really we need to be concerned about. And how does this work? Well, every cell that you make, for the most part, there's some that don't do this, but for the most part, every cell that you make, you put a name tag on. Blah, blah. It's called CD55. And CD55 is how your immune system, and there's other mechanisms, but this is just sort of high level. But CD55 is how your immune system recognizes, oh, that's me, or oh, that isn't me. Of the things that are not you, there's 4 things, right? So there's bacterias, funguses, parasites, and viruses. Okay. And there's classifications underneath those guys, but those are the things that we can get infected with. Those are called pathogens generally. Parasites are a type of pathogen. So why do we get infected with parasites, which are a type of pathogen? We've been trying to figure that out for a long time. I would argue that ancient Egypt had better food practices than we have right now. And we had better food practices in the 1800s than we have right now as far as our eating and kind of what we
Yep.
do. But we were taking digestive bitters. We were doing a lot of things. Let's say we were deworming ourselves. We were taking diatonomous earth. So we were aware of parasites back then and we're doing things as protectives, but we weren't fully defending ourselves. And I've just written some intellectual property for some and again, I can't publicly disclose it because I call it intellectual property. But let's say we've got this figured out a lot more. Like in God's system, it doesn't make sense to me that there are things that could infect you. So you have to be able to configure yourself against anything out here. Okay. And again, there's always going to be stuff that beats us, and we're going to have to figure out new ways to get better and better and better. But generally, we should do a lot better job of protecting ourselves than we do. And there's reasons for that. And you'll hear me talk a lot about those reasons soon. But they're kind of weird and obvious sideways reasons why we continue to get infected. And it's behavior stuff mainly. It's just behavior and stuff we've lost over time that we knew. So
So, you've been listening to Chip Paul. This is Ultralife Today. I'm Josh Bellew. Adam Payne's hanging out with us in here. We're having an engaging conversation with Chip about the endocannabinoid system, about pathogens,
Parasites.
about infections in the body, parasites. We didn't touch on fungus or mold yet. If you want to get a hold of Chip, you can reach him at neighborlywellness.com. For those of you that will be listening to this in the metro area, strongly suggest if you've listened to anything he's said today, I think that Chip does an amazing job of taking the mystery out of a lot of things that people are just walking around with the mystery illness. They don't know what to do. They've spent plenty of time at the conventional doc and they're not getting better. So I highly encourage you, neighborlywellness.com, Chip Paul. Um, you know, before we kind of close this thing out, Chip, we talked about the endocannabinoid system, but we didn't actually talk about like hemp and CBD and things like that. You know, what do people get wrong about CBD? How's that for a question for you? Because it was one of those health revolutions, and you were kind of on the front edge of that here in Oklahoma, in a pretty big way for a number of years. So what do people get wrong about CBD? And, you've already said, well, hey, we could feed our endocannabinoid system by, doing omega-3 and omega-6 properly. So What's the CBD? What's the deal with it?
Yeah, I think CBD, most people think of it as a CB2 effector. So like THC would be the thing in cannabis that would affect CB1, and CBD would be the thing in cannabis that affects CB2. Well, it's kind of doesn't really work that way. So CBD really has more benefit as an immunosuppressant, and as a, let's say, enhancer of CB1 neuroreceptor activity, than it does at CB2. So it's more kind of engineering. It helps you increase your engineering surface and ability to do work, let's say, inside of your body versus really rev up your immune system. So CB2 action, CB1 is kind of our general control surface. So again, if a cell wants to participate in the collective, he's going to raise his CB1 hand. That's going to say, "Hey, I want to be part of the system. I don't want to be an individual guy anymore." And he's signaled by that, and basically that's the control mechanism for him wanting to participate in the collective. CB2 is a little bit more specific, and it's just a developmental evolutionary thing. When cells came together to build, different structures, they had to have an endocannabinoid system. But as those structures got complicated enough to, let's say, be infected, then they had to develop an immune system, and CB2 is kind of a more direct immune control in your endocannabinoid system versus CB1. But CBDs from cannabis really help modify that CB1 environment more than they do anything at CB2. So they're FAW inhibitors, they're immunosuppressants, and FAW inhibition turns out to be a pretty good thing in our omega-6 heavy diet. So
Yeah, I find m in the work that we've done, we've identified that, most of the CB2 receptors are on immune cells in the body,
correct.
right?
Yep.
And the, central nervous system actually has most of the CB1 receptor. So it's kind of like, if you're looking to regulate the immune system and its activity and its engagement, that's where the CBDs, or the non-THC, cannabinoids can have a better interface. And then, because THC-THCA really does integrate better with the, CB1 receptors, which is why people get high when they, which in the central nervous system where most of those receptors lay, it gets that effect. But there's a lot. It sounds like, Chip, that you've gotten a much finer, kind of, interface on how different cannabinoids, can
Modulate.
influence different parts of the biology, essentially.
Yeah, yeah, and CB1 is kind of our master engineering and control surface, and every eukaryotic cell will express a CB1 neuroreceptor. I think the only cell inside of us that really won't express a CB1 is hemoglobin, or red blood cell.
Sure.
But every other cell will, and not just cells. Mitochondria express CB1s, endoplasmic reticulum express CB1s, and would have to if the endocannabinoid system is our master control. So it's not
Sure.
just every cell, it's every organelle inside every cell.
That's interesting. Very interesting.
Hey, Chip, can you think of about 2 or 3 case studies that you could just kind of throw out here? Because there's a lot of people that are gonna be listening that are experiencing what you're finding walking in the door, of your clinic on a daily basis. You mentioned H. pylori, you mentioned other things. Can you talk a little bit about how some of those things are manifesting in an individual that comes into Neighborly Wellness, and then how you're able to shift their life around, turn the tide, so to speak, because those kind of stories always just really help an individual, I think, make a decision to step out of the world they've lived in for so long and say, I'm going to go see that guy because he's getting results and I'm not getting results over here in this conventional paradigm world.
Yeah, so let me give you a couple of examples. So we'll call this fella Joe, but Joe comes in complaining of severe burning, When every time he can only eat certain foods, anything that's acidic at all just causes him severe burning. His life is just completely revolves around his eating, the burning, what's happening to him. And most people, again, hook him up to the scanner. He's got, indicated H. pylori, which is the obvious thing that he would have. About 90% of the people, I can walk right out to our supplement shelf, and we built a product called Gut Restore that is at SIBO, and it consequently works with H. pylori, which is kind of nice. But we can point them to that product, send them on their way, they get better, everything is fine. But there
Wow.
is a certain amount of people that doesn't work for. So we do that with him. He calls, and I always tell people, listen, if this isn't working in 2 or 3 days, call me because you're going to need something else, we're missing it. So he calls, he says it's not doing anything, I mean, it's just worse if anything. So we start formulating for him, and again, I know what the situation is. It's an ulceration, and acid comes up in ulceration, so we either have to heal that ulceration or restrict stomach acid, and you don't really want to restrict stomach acid. That's a
Right.
bad thing to do.
Hmm.
So those cells turn over every 3 to 5 days, and there's, think licorice, will help with that. Mastic gum will help with that. So just basically built him a supplement to cut down the burning, and that turned into a product that worked so well. And within a day, we cut out something that he had all his life. Completely
Right.
ruled his life. Within a day, we completely altered that situation, and now he's better. I'll give you another situation of a
Wow.
lady. A lady who comes in. She looks like a kind of a face in a water balloon. Okay, so she's retaining that much water. She has constant yeast infection. She has polycystic ovarian syndrome. Her hormones are all whacked out. So we put her on the scanner, and she indicates for a heavy parasite burden, and has everything: funguses, viruses. She's got a little pylori too, but it's looking like kind of the parasites are her main thing. Now, as you begin to investigate this, if a woman is taking progesterone or estrogen, they are turning off half of their immune system. Okay. Because if you're estrogen dominant, you're going to have a type 2 immune response. You're going to have more of an antibody response. You're going to shut down your killer response. Why? It's just the way that you work. If a woman is pregnant, now she's going to come over here so she doesn't kill her embryo. So if someone is taking a bunch of, and testosterone will do other things, but basically, if a woman is taking a bunch of hormone supplements, they're going to be over here in this immune response, and that's going to leave them wide open to parasitic infections and things like that. So we begin to, and this lady also has high blood pressure. Now, when somebody comes in with high blood pressure, I'm like, awesome. That's a great thing, because again, I can show you how you're getting better just by your blood pressure going down. So it's a
Yeah.
feedback mechanism that somebody has
Right.
directly on whether they're getting better or not. We couldn't get her blood pressure down. I couldn't get, and again, most people right off the shelf, 90% of people, we just get to move, no problem. But we began to work with her and began to understand that she was stuck in kind of this hormone infection, loop. And it's taken us a while to get her out of that, but we've got her out of that. We've got her blood pressure coming down. We've got her losing water weight. And again, water weight and blood pressure are all the same hormone called aldosterone, and you will dysregulate that hormone in severe infective situations. So IL-6, IL-4, and IL-13, I think, are the guys that really dysregulate him, that are caused by helminth infections. So aldosterone is, blood pressure, let's say, can be directly tied back to infective.
Mm.
It's not you're breaking. It's not your heart is failing. It's not that your blood vessels are failing. It's not that God is a poor engineer. It doesn't work that way. God is a perfect engineer. No one makes old cells. No one makes disease cells. No one makes sick cells. No one makes infected cells. We all make perfect cells, don't we? There's a lot of things that can happen to those cells after we make them, but you're meting out pretty perfect cells.
Wow,
Wow.
amazing. You've been listening to Chip Paul of Neighborly Wellness. Go out and see him or do a remote consultation, neighborlywellness.com. He and his wife Cindy are fascinating people, and I think they're pioneering some new and interesting stuff here in our community, Adam.
That's fascinating, Chip. Really looking forward to get to know you and some of the things that you're doing.
Yeah. This has been Ultralife Today. Wherever you like podcasts, you can go to Apple, you can go to Spotify, you can get on YouTube. We probably have about 170 archived episodes there. If you like what we're doing, bringing relevant content from people like Chip Paul, hey, like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you next time. And Chip, thanks again for joining us, brother.
Yeah, really
Thank you
enjoyed this.
guys.
Thanks, Chip. Yep,
Yep.
take care.
Thank
Bye
you
now.
both.
Bye.
Thank you.